Oh, we're live. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Facebook Live Fiesta, which normally is on my business page, but today we have technical difficulties. So we are coming to you live today on NAWSP's Facebook page, and we will be sharing that over. So welcome. I want to welcome Cynthia Barnes to her own page. How are you?
Hey, Catherine, how are you?
Great. My gosh, there must be like a bunch of people trying to get on Facebook today or Zoom or something. It was something strange, but
who knows?
You know what?
Who knows?
When we're in sales and you learn how to improvise really quickly and do what you need to do to get the job done. So thank you so much for coming on. So what we've been doing on my Facebook Live Fiestas is I have taken the opportunity to provide value to the audience in a time when they need it most. And we're delivering tips and strategies to the audience so that they don't just survive in this time, but that they actually learn how to thrive in this time. And if they can thrive today, they can thrive moving forward.
Yes.
So that's what I wanted to do. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about you, what brought you to where you are today with NAWSP.
Okay.
And a little bit about what you're going to talk about today and what takeaway messages they're going to have. And what I always tell everybody is have your blank piece of paper out and take notes, because this is where you're going to learn.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
As the founder of the National Association of Women Sales Professionals, I am laser focused on two things. Number one, equipping our members with the network and the sales training to get to the top 1%, as well as the support to help them overcome the unique challenges that women in sales face. Started the organization in 2017 with a hypothesis. I said, in a world where traditional sales approaches were created by men for men at a time when men made up the entire sales force, how much faster could women in sales get to the top 1% if we had sales approaches that approached our unique challenges as well as amplified the strengths that we have. So that's how NAWSP got started. We're currently sitting at 14,900 members, almost 15,000 members across the world. And we share content and training to help you get to the top 1%. So that's what we do.
That's great. I'm playing with my camera here. It's like got me not blurry. It's technical difficulty day. So there we go. I'm back in focus. So what is your goal, Cynthia? Like how many members do you want to have in the organization?
Oh, 300,000 by 2025.
Oh, I'm writing that down. 300,000 members.
Yes.
All right. And do you have an estimate of how many women in sales that might be now in the U.S.? Or in the U.S. maybe?
In the U.S., 39% of all women or sales professionals are women. That's in B2B sales. So we're not talking side hustlers or retail. We're talking about B2B sales.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So 39%. So 300,000 is a big goal. So let's talk a little bit about how are you doing? How are you holding up during this time? How's the organization holding up? What are you doing to support the women now that might be at home wondering about their quotas? Well, most importantly, let's not even kid around. There are actually some people wondering about their jobs, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to put my phone on snooze here. Yeah.
It's an uncertain time. And as humans, we don't really like uncertainty. And I was listening to a podcast and the woman said, this is a time where the rug gets taken from underneath our feet first, and then the floor gets taken out next, and then the ground gets taken out after that. And then we're just starting to see how crazy and chaotic these times are. So for those women in sales who are in a flux, hold tight. Yeah. Hold tight and hold true to what you know. Remember, women in sales have BBA, or bounce back ability. We are resilient as heck. So sometimes when you don't know what to do, the best thing is just to be still and let things unfold and plan and then act.
Yeah. That's good advice. Good advice. And, I had another guest on this week, and we were talking that in these times, like the previous, I lived through Y2K, I lived through 9/11, I lived through 2007, 8, 9, 10, which were my trying years, but there was like an end. The accident happened, the terrorism happened. We knew it could happen again, but at least was an end today.
Yes.
This uncertain time, we don't know really when it's going to end. We don't know what it is. So those are navigating waters that it's just, there's no guidebook for.
Sure.
Right. So let's talk a little bit. What we decided to talk about today was really pre-call planning and being ready for that opportunity. And especially now, if you're able to sell and you're getting somebody through over Zoom or over a phone call, you better be ready.
Better be ready.
There's not very many opportunities.
Right.
You better have your ducks lined up. You don't, in the meme I put, you don't want to piss anyone off. You don't want to make them angry. You don't want to misstep. But I will say, just like this technical difficulty that we had, people, I think, are giving you a little bit more grace than they might have before.
I think it depends on who you're calling on. Yes, I think there's more grace and more understanding. Mm-hmm. The higher up you go in the organization, the less patience people have. If you're a C-suite executive, you expect the salesperson to come prepared, mm-hmm. qualified, and not ask a whole bunch of questions that a subordinate could have answered.
Absolutely.
Because their time is valuable, and a C-suite executive is going to say, why are you coming to me asking me all of these questions in the name of rapport? You're wasting my time. My time is valuable. So you've got to understand the psychographics and the mindset that the higher up you go in the chain, in the hierarchy, the more valuable people think their time is.
Yeah. And that's it. And those CEOs are having the same questions on the top side. Like, am I going to have to let people go? What's going to happen to my revenues? What's my planning? So yeah, it really is a time to be aware of how you're presenting and what you're doing, and to make sure you have value. So yes. What do you have for us to make sure that we are that prepared person that shines, so the CEO remembers us in the future? Maybe they couldn't buy today, but as soon as they can, they'll remember that we were that high quality person that came with the solution to actually the problem that they had.
Yes. So in the pre-call planning phase, you've got to do your homework about the individual, their company, their attitudes, and how they view the sales process. So when we're talking about the individual, mm-hmm. look on LinkedIn and look up that C-suite executive and find out what troubles or what challenges are they facing. Sometimes you even have to go into a LinkedIn group of their peers and lurk and find out what are they talking about as it relates to your product or service.
Okay.
When we take a look at their company, what challenges is the company going through currently, and what are their plans to rectify those challenges? When we take a look at their attitudes towards salespeople, rules around working with salespeople. Do you have to go through a number of layers in order to speak to them, through the gatekeeper, through a subordinate, things like that? And lastly, you want to take a look at the company itself, mm-hmm. how they're doing, and your role in it. So remember that salespeople are professional problem solvers. Mm-hmm. So how is it that you are going to solve that person's problems and come prepared with the solutions? There's an old expression that says, don't come to me with a problem unless you have a solution already mapped out.
Right.
As a professional salesperson, you need to have that solution already mapped out based upon what they have said. If you do not do efficient call planning, then you are more likely to walk in there giving them a data dump of how this is how great my service is, and you will miss the mark. You may even have an opportunity where you're trying to close a deal and it doesn't even matter to them what you're trying to close on because you have not hit their hot points. So you've got to do your homework.
I want to back up just a little bit. So you said we should know what the company's going through. Mm-hmm. So give me an example. Let's say I'm selling something to NAWSP.
Yes.
And so where I obviously can go to LinkedIn, but LinkedIn's really just going to show me what Cynthia's talking about and the problems that her people are might be experiencing, right? Her members. But where am I going to find hidden information about what is going on with the company?
So if you were to pitch in a WSP, you would have to go back to historical data and realize that our business model was doing 120 events, live in-person events around the country. With COVID-19, we've had to pivot quickly to virtual events and online programming. So if you were to pitch in a WSP on a product or service that we need, you could mention, hey, Ms. Barnes, Cynthia, we know that you've had to pivot quickly in this time. How can we help with that? But you'd have to do some historical research to find that out. And that's where pre-call planning comes in. So you could look at our Twitter feed, you could look at our LinkedIn company page, you could look at Google Alerts, you could look at what have we done up until COVID-19 and what are we doing now?
Yeah, that's good. Because perhaps some salespeople, not women in sales, of course, no, but perhaps some salespeople don't really go that deep, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I have an appointment with this person. I looked them up on LinkedIn. I can talk to them about where they went to school and who we might be connected with. And now I'm just going to show up to my appointment. And that's when they might just data dump, right? They didn't actually like go, okay, wow, let me think about the vertical. Let me find what's going on. Let me look at their competitors and see kind of what the competition might be doing. Let's look at other maybe parallel things that they're downstream. Maybe they're a manufacturer for something, what's happening downstream, because they really need to have like that holistic look, right? About what's coming down and where they're going, and maybe some employee satisfaction as well, maybe some Glassdoor things to see if employees are talking about the company. And especially if you're like selling an HR software or something, and you see that there's some grumblings about the company. So those are just some ideas about how they would find out about the company. So what was one of the other things that you mentioned? I'm trying to talk right and go back to at the same time. So
I would find out what are their attitudes towards salespeople.
Oh, good one. Okay.
And also their attitude toward women in sales.
Attitude towards salespeople. So if I was a salesperson and I wanted to find that information, I might ask the gatekeeper, right? Like, how do they interact? I know their time is valuable. Tell me a little bit about what I can expect from the meeting. What are some other ways that you could get that soft information about their attitude about salespeople?
How does Mr. or Miss XYZ prefer to be approached by salespeople?
Okay.
Do they want a LinkedIn request? Do they want email? Do they want phone? Do they want Twitter? Ask their gatekeeper, if you will, what is the best way if I want to get on so-and-so's good side for me to interact with them?
Okay.
You could also take it a step further and say, how early does so-and-so get into the office? Because if so-and-so is in the office at 7 o'clock, chances are his day hasn't started. You can actually have a good quality conversation. And I wanted to go back to what you said about that pre-call planning and how long it takes. There is a falsehood, if you will, in sales that says sales is just a numbers game. While that is partially true, it is a quality numbers game. I would rather you take the time to come up with a mini profile that takes 5-10 minutes of each prospect and knock out 10 good quality calls a day than to look at someone's LinkedIn page and do 100 calls and say, hey, Bob, I see you went to the University of Michigan. How about those Wolverines? Yeah. So don't make the mistake of saying, okay, well, I looked at their LinkedIn page and I am now full of quality information to be able to contact them. That's not going to work.
No.
That's not going to work.
No.
So going back to your question about the attitude towards salespeople, you can also look at their LinkedIn feed and see what they've posted. Because there are a lot of CEOs that will say, I hate it when a salesperson does this. Can't stand it when salespeople do this. So find out how they feel. And then you can also ask the gatekeeper what percentage of the people are actually women that are calling on him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen lately that some CEOs don't want to be on LinkedIn. They want to hide. They don't have time for it. They're really the figurehead and they're top of the company. So would you recommend going to like just the person below them, or what if it's harder to find information about them?
I would go to a subordinate. Mm-hmm. I would be all over LinkedIn and find out who reports to the person that I am trying to reach.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I would do some recon, because you can look at the hierarchy.
Yeah,
whatever that word is. Whatever. Data, and find out. Let me see an org chart of the organization and find out who reports to that person, and then ask them just very candidly, I'm trying to get an appointment with so-and-so. What would you recommend as my first step?
Yeah. And they tell you.
And if not, somebody else will.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But most salespeople don't do that.
Interesting. Right. Because sometimes it sounds natural. If I'm going to, I've even had a pre-meeting meeting. Like, I came from the medical field, and I knew the doctor wasn't going to be in for the day. So I'm like, that's good, because then I know you guys won't be so busy. Let me bring lunch and talk to you so I can really uncover the operations of the company and how things are happening, and just have that investigator hat on so that I can get the feel of the culture and what's happening. So when that doctor came in, I was like, boom, boom, boom. I talked to so-and-so and they said this and this and this and this. And and then the doctors was like impressed, right? Because you took that extra time to find the information. Okay. So let's go into the next one. After you find out about the company, you find out about their attitudes of sales. What's kind of the next thing that you would do to get ready?
I would take a look at what challenges they're facing now.
Okay.
Regarding my product or service.
Okay.
And how can I help? So then I would take a look at the CEO. If I'm calling on a CEO, I would take a look at his KPIs. What is he measured on? Or if I'm looking at a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, what are their KPIs, those key performance indicators? And then I would say, okay, if he is measured, if the Chief Marketing Officer is measured on the return on investment of his marketing spend, how is it that I can help him be a rock star? So always think of it this way. Let's say that your target market, your prospect is named Trevor. And Trevor walks into a pre-COVID happy hour, and he's got his craft beer in his hand, and the guys around him say, hey, Trevor, we haven't seen you in a month. What's been going on, man? And Trevor sets down his craft beer and he says, you're not going to believe this. I was finally able to accomplish this. Whatever this is related to your product or service is what you need to concentrate on.
Yeah.
Think of it another way. If Trevor is filling out his resume and he's listing his accomplishments, the number one accomplishment that he lists should be what you can help him with. If you can help him with that, then you'll never go hungry. And think of that as your primary objective. How can I help him in his performance evaluation look like a rock star?
Yeah, those are good tips. How about for someone that's selling something that's kind of a me too? Maybe the prospect already has a platform, like a software platform, and it's really just a me too, and it's not going to change it. Any suggestions of positioning like a me too product for somebody that's a little more complicated?
How can you take them from average to wow?
Okay.
If I understand your question correctly.
Yeah.
Because there are two different types of two different schools of thought. Mm-hmm. There is those that say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mm-hmm. And others say, if it's not perfect, keep working. Nobody signs up to do anything average. So even though they may say, you know what, I'm all set, I don't need your services, your job is to say, here's where you are now. If there was a way for me to take you here and then all of your benefits, would you be interested in learning how? And of course, they're going to say yes.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants that wow factor, especially in a Me Too kind of thing. Everybody wants wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody marries the average dude. We want wow.
Or we stay single for the rest of our lives.
Right. And Olivia Pope our feelings on Thursday night with wine and popcorn.
Yeah. That's what I've been doing. But I am going to admit, even though I have my jungle dress on today, I am not a Tiger King fan. I am not watching that show. No.
I tried in the beginning, and as soon as I saw the caged animals, I said, oh, but let them free. Let them go. Let the babies go.
It's not for me. It's not for me. All right. So KPIs, what are they measured on? Now, I it's interesting because I do have a prospect now that is saying they're having a hard time understanding the KPIs of their target market, because, and this individual is selling to more finance people. So finance people are really interested in a box, right? They want to keep everything nice and neat in their box. They show up, they're salaried, they're kind of like accounting. What are some tips that I could give him to understand the chief financial officer? Well, we know profit and loss. Let's take it down a step. What are some of the other things that he might not think about that this finance manager might be measured on? Maybe they're not in control of the whole profit of the company. But.
Right. I would take it and have a very candid conversation with this person and find out what makes them tick. Are they looking for recognition? Are they looking for a job well done? Kudos? Are they looking to leave the company? So I would start with a candid conversation that has nothing to do with business, but just kind of a getting to know you type of conversation.
Okay.
Wanted to get to know you. I don't want to sell you anything, but I believe that business is built upon relationships, and you're not going to do business with me if you don't like me. So let's try. Let's have a conversation.
Do you think any of those personality profiles that people do, DISC or whatever, do you think that that's when these knowledgeable things could be brought in for a salesperson?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If I'm dealing with a high D person, they don't want to talk about feelings. They want, what are you doing for me? And how is this going to impact my day? And by the way, you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds, go.
Yeah, right.
That's your high D personality. So when I ask a couple of quick questions at the beginning, I can ascertain, are they a D, an I, an S, or a C? And I'm going to alter my questioning around their personality profile.
Yep. And that's really takes a seasoned salesperson, right? To be able to do all of those things. And, I know DISC is hot and people take the test, but they don't take it a step farther to understand how they would actually use that information and how they would interact with people. So sales, now's the time. If you're at home, right? It's this is the time where you start to really sharpen those skills. If you've done a DISC assessment, I know I have the one of the others on my shelf behind me, but now's the time to maybe do some role playing with a friend or with a colleague, and understand how you might address each of those different types of personalities. Or sales manager, maybe you can take matters in your own hand and start doing some role playing with them so that they're really comfortable in assessing all the different personalities that they might come across. Okay, so what's next? After we've done the KPIs and we're understanding what's hot for that person and what's their personality, what's the next thing that they can do for pre-call planning?
Make your list of questions.
Okay.
Make your list of questions. Where do you want to go? I am a big fan of the spin selling method. But have a plan of action. Have an agenda. Again, the higher you go on that ladder, the more they expect you to have an agenda. You'll build rapport, but here's the agenda that I'd like to cover today. And because I'd like this to be our meeting and not just my meeting, what would you like to add to it?
Oh, good question, right?
Yes. Yes. What would you like to add to it? What would you like to cover? That way it gives them an opportunity to say, this is what I'd like to cover in the 15 minutes that we have. When you say, I'm taking 15 minutes, stick to 15 minutes and remind them, thank you so much for your time today. We were scheduled for 15 minutes. Are you still good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
And then make sure that your questioning covers 15 minutes. If it goes over, let it be because the CEO or that chief marketing officer allowed it to go over, not because you have more questions to ask.
Yeah. And you need to be able to stop, right? Not wait. I still have some more questions I need to ask you. So what would be a good interaction? So let's say I do have my list of discovery and I did my homework. I found out things and I had a certain number of things. But in the middle of our meeting, our 15 minutes that I had, Mr. Prospect gets a phone call or their secretary comes in, with an urgent thing they have to get to. How would you be nimble on your feet to kind of handle that when you still have some questions, instead of saying, well, you took 10 of my 15 minutes with that phone call, so I'm expecting you to, extend my meeting. What's a tactful way to kind of ask for more time or to get to the end? What are some suggestions you would have for a scenario like that?
Well, remember in the beginning, you said, I'd like this to be our meeting. So what would you like to cover? So in the beginning, I'm asking my questions. If we get interrupted, I still haven't answered his questions. So I would use that to say, we still have some questions that were unanswered, and I'd like to get your questions answered. Is now a good time, or do you have a hard stop? Or when can I come back and answer your questions for you?
Okay. Those are good, right? Because then you're putting Mr. Prospect's needs ahead of yours.
Yes.
And they're acknowledging that. And it also you might see some body language, like a little relax, right? Yes. For me, that's a buy signal. Yes. When they do this.
Yes.
So yeah, that's great. And then what's your next thing? I was going to ask one question, how you would handle. I'll just go on. So let's say you got their question answered. So you're moving towards the end. Are you asking for next steps in that meeting? Are you laying out how you're going to proceed? Because you still have to do all that wrap up, right?
Yes.
To kind of wrap your sales call up in a little bow. In that interrupted time, how would you close the sales call then?
I would ask, one of my questions I always ask is, who else is involved in this decision? So that tells me if we have a committee. Mr. Prospect, you mentioned that this needs to go to your committee. What are the next steps in your mind of how we get this in front of the committee? How would you like us to present this to the committee? Because remember, you want to be that in the room, because the last thing you want is the telephone game of you tell the prospect and the prospect goes to, no, you want to be in the room with the committee or on a Zoom call so that you can present to the committee. And then one of my favorite closing questions is this a now problem, a now problem or a later problem? Because you can detect the level of urgency.
Yes. And that's something that I don't really know in the past that I always used, but now I'm incorporating it, which is just interesting. I guess just in my field of work in the past, if they had a broken system, I knew already it was patient care. It had to be fixed right then. Sure. So I guess I just jumped on it. I could tell, but that's really important, right? Because what are you trying to engage? You just said to see if it's a hell on fire kind of problem that you're putting out, or if you're kind of gauging the importance of it to them, and you might need to do a little bit more because you haven't delivered enough value. Like, what are some of those feedbacks that you would get with that kind of a question? It's now or later.
Yeah, is this a sooner problem or a later problem? I want them in their mind to say it's now or it's later. Then I follow up with that. That's interesting. What makes you say that? Either way. Mm-hmm. If this is a now problem, well, we've got to act on this, blah, 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 blah. Or it's a later problem, we're really in the planning stages. I still want to know what makes you say that.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Because remember, every question that you ask should be followed up with another question, or else it sounds like an interrogation.
Yeah.
And it always should be, so tell me more about that. Or what did you mean by that? Or that's really interesting. Could you expound on that for me so that I can understand?
And if they say it's a now problem, you could say, can you do me a favor and define what now is? Like now for somebody might be this quarter or next week or tomorrow or today, you know, so you want to get the definition.
Yeah, not as important as if it's a now problem, it's an urgency, it hurts. So tell me why it's a now problem. Well, because we need masks and we need this and this and this. That sounds like it's really urgent. Mm-hmm. In your mind, if you had a way to solve this now problem, what would you do? Or what would you like to see happen? Well, I'd like to see this, this, and this, and this. Well, Mr. Prospect, if I hear you correctly, you'd like to see this, this, and this. If I could show you a way to do this, this, and this, and I'm using their words, can you think of any reason why we shouldn't proceed?
Deal's done. Maybe. Okay. So we've gone through a lot. Was there anything else on your mind for pre-call planning that we haven't touched on? Or we kind of did like a little bit of a role playing as well. Is there any like we could go into wrapping up the sales meeting, follow up on the meeting, thank you notes, that type of thing. But how about just in that pre-call planning and just in this sales time? Is there anything that we're leaving out?
Yes, you need to set a call objective.
Okay.
What exactly do I want at the end of this call? And please don't let it be to sell something. Because remember, the higher the ticket item, the longer the sales cycle.
Yeah.
Just like if you were dating someone for marriage intention, and sales is a lot like dating. You are not going to go up to a woman or a man and say, hey, I would love to spend the weekend with you in Bora Bora. She might say yes. He might say yes. But the reality of it is you're going to start with, I'd like to exchange numbers. You have a few texts, you have a few calls, and then you'll have coffee. And then you'll decide whether or not you'd like to have dinner. Mm-hmm. And on and on and on. The same thing goes with prospecting. You don't want to walk into a sales situation saying, if my call objective is to have them buy right then and there. No, my objective is to qualify them to find out whether or not they are a good prospect for me. I want to uncover their needs and also set another appointment to dive deeper.
Now, I've been working a little bit with some large enterprise companies, and they have more content and more marketing collateral than I've ever seen in my entire life. But there's, some other companies that there might not be this really structured sales team or sales process. It's really important to map out your buyer's journey, right? And to what it is, like, what's the step, where are they in their journey? Do they know who we are? One thing that I always preach on is this is a business relationship. Yes. And the business relationship means there's profit. Somebody's got to profit from this, or I'm just going into this office to shoot the shit and make friends, and nobody's going to benefit from that, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you are on a fat paycheck, but not the company that you're working for. So when we said we're going to move the process along, somebody needs to define what that process is, right? And the salesperson, they need to understand, how are the sales normally done, right? What was the last sell I did? How did that process work? Or if you're in a new position, right? What would be some suggestions if they don't have a really extensive sales training program? What would be a suggestion you would make for someone to understand that process a little bit better?
Mr. Prospect, here is how we normally work with organizations just like yours. We set up an appointment, we do this, we do this, we do this. Based upon that path, can you think of anything that you would like to see different?
That's really good because you're not guessing.
Right.
And you're not mapping it out based on somebody else. Mm-hmm. You're mapping it out based on that prospect, yes. Right? And their company.
Yes. And when you give people the opportunity to give input, mm-hmm. they feel better because this is, remember, our partnership, not me selling you something. And nobody wants to go into business with someone who sells them something.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to be sold, but everybody likes to buy.
Right. And you also might uncover something that you didn't even think of.
Exactly.
Like you didn't even know. You thought you had the deal, and they're like, oh yes, so we have a committee and it meets twice a year. And the meeting was yesterday.
Right. So then you're Mr. Like, Prospect, if this is a sooner problem and the committee only meets biannually, what would your suggestion be to help fix this problem sooner rather than later?
Yeah.
And let them give you ideas. Well, we could call an emergency committee meeting. We could do this. We could do that. Okay, what else? Let's explore all those options to help you alleviate this problem sooner rather than later.
Yeah, all good stuff. So we started a little late, but I want to honor your time. I know you're a busy lady. So if somebody wants to, you're not doing any more one-on-one sales coaching.
Correct.
So peeps, if you want to get some of this great information from Cynthia, how would they get that from you?
We have the NAWSP Tribe, which is our online community, and that is www. For some reason, you still have to put in the www, but www.nawsptribe.com. Okay. You could also learn more about our upcoming webinars and classes at nawsp.org. And lastly, you can follow me on LinkedIn, Cynthia Barnes. I'd love to interact with you and engage with you.
Yeah. And as everybody knows, or they don't know, I actually work with Cynthia because I'm the chapter president for San Diego.
Yes.
So anybody watching this is in San Diego, we're dishing out all this good information in our quarterly meetings, right? We've moved to quarterly organized meetings.
Yes.
And in this time frame, Cynthia's giving so much value through our app, which is Mighty Networks, correct?
Yep.
And
SP Tribe. Yep.
Yep. And so if you guys are members, remember, correct me if I'm wrong, me this yesterday. How do I get into that group? Like, where's all the information? I'm like, did you look at your welcome email?
Right.
So the welcome email that you got when you joined NAWSP gives you the information about how to join the nawsptribe.com.
Yeah.
Right. And it has information. Reach out to us. If you have any questions, all of the chapter presidents, I'm sure they have their information in their LinkedIn profile. Cynthia is wonderful about responding through LinkedIn Messenger. Ask me, I'll get to you. But it really is valuable, you guys, this information, the kind of role playing that we did. We all are here to support you. We want to see you successful. We want to see you in the top 1%.
Yes.
And we live, eat, and breathe sales.
Yes.
Like, we can role play with you. It's a passion. This is a volunteer organization for me. And so it's obviously a passion for me to help people and to help them succeed. Same with Cynthia, or she wouldn't have started the organization.
Absolutely.
So Cynthia, your ticket to this Facebook Live, besides your own group, was, what would you bring to my Facebook fiesta, to our fiesta? What's your favorite Mexican fiesta cocktail or beverage or appetizer?
Oh, we'd have to have some music first.
Okay.
Yep. Either some Luis Miguel or Celia Cruz. We'd have to have chips and salsa, chips and guacamole. Spicier the better. And mojitos.
Ooh, yum.
Yum.
So we had somebody is bringing a ceviche.
Okay.
Somebody's bringing guacamole and chips.
Nice.
Someone's bringing a red sangria, and Cynthia will be bringing the mixings for mojitos.
Yes, and music.
Oh, and the music.
Yeah,
yes.
We can't have a fiesta without music.
Oh, not at all. I wish we had a live guitar player, though. That would be
and let me know
beautiful.
Who's bringing the men.
Have you heard that I might have about 8 single Mexican brothers that are pretty dang good looking? I could bring them over from the border.
Let's end the call now.
And all their friends, right? Okay, you guys, I want to say peace out. Thank you so much for joining us. This video is going to not be live for my group, but it will show up. So I will jump in and answer any questions you have. I'll put how to connect with Cynthia in the comments. Thank you. So, you're going to have to end it. I'm like getting ready to end the meeting, but I think you're the one that's going to have to do that. So
sounds good.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys. Have a great day and happy Wednesday.
Yes.